got a really good update today. So the short of it is that we have Keycloak up, we have Amazon simple email service integrated. Keycloak can do password resets. It can do user self-registration with email verification. I have not enabled that for everyone yet. That is just it's a flick of a switch with Keycloak, but we're not in the beta period yet, so I have not enabled it yet. But it is there. It's a simple thing, and I'm going to go ahead and show you right now how we get to that. So go to eGloo.com, and boom, we are now presented with the default Keycloak branded SSO. A couple cool things. Keycloak has built-in localization, so if we want to have a different language like German or Italian, it's all provided there. It has built-in remember me stickiness if you so choose. And it has forgot password functionality, which is pretty cool. It's tied to the Amazon simple email service. So that's being taken care of. That's all hooked up, and most of that's Terraform. There's some aspects of it that you can't Terraform completely. For instance, you have to actually set up a verified email manually in the AWS console, which I did. You also are stuck in sandbox mode until you request a limit update from Amazon. So I put in that request. I'm still waiting on a response, but considering that we're just using Keycloak, I don't expect any problems. So let's go ahead. I'm going to grab my password there. All right. So now it takes us to a white screen, totally normal, because at the end of the day, we still don't have the backend API up for hitting this React, or for this React web client to be hitting. But a couple cool things that you'll see. So first of all, we are having local storage for both of these sites. Don't have anything right now on the Keycloak side, but that's fine. I think it actually gets contained. Double check here. Might be. Yeah, I think it's handled. Yeah, it's all handled here. Yeah, so the local storage, you'll see some cool things here. So we have our React refresh token and React token. These, essentially what this is, right? Keycloak allows you to provide an OAuth 2 style connection system, so that this web application or any web application or any client really. So we basically have built-in API tokenization support out the gate. And the React web app, which is eGloo.com's face, is out of the box already a client of Keycloak on the back end. And so right now, Keycloak is providing this user ID. And the other cool thing is that you'll notice that the user IDs are UUID style format. So we're not using a database big int primary or serial auto increment that we have to hash or shard on our own. Essentially what we have here already is a neatly packaged user ID for however we want to be using that in the future. But realistically, once you get to a certain scale, your user IDs start to look something like this, right? So we got that already out in front of us. And this is really cool too, because now you can see that if I go to eGloo.com again, right? I'm already logged in. So it's taking me to this blank page, which nothing sexy yet, but the cool thing is that we have a login. We have created a login function. So the next piece here I want to show you is that if I clear the site data, clear the storage, right? So we no longer have any data here. You'll notice I didn't even hit reload. Keycloak JS has a really cool feature where it actually runs a little bit in the background. So the minute that it noticed that I no longer had a valid session token, it just booted me, which is great, right? So yeah, once we are ready for the beta to start, you'll see a register button alongside the login button. Do we just I don't want to have people sign up and then go into a blank white page right now, so we don't have that. But we do have a forgot password, so I'm gonna send this to myself, and the time right now is 12:16. So all right, so we sent an email out right now. I'll just wait for it to come into my email, and alrighty, and now you'll see. So we have it from connect@eGloo.com. Why connect? Well, I was trying to think of something that was not no reply, because there apparently is some debate over whether or not that's a great idea for a mailbox. But login or sign up or registration, they all just kind of felt a little meh. So I went with connect@eGloo.com. And then, so this email I had to actually create as a verified email in AWS Simple Email Service, SES. But it works. And in order for us to actually go into production mode with this, I put in a request so that AWS will up our limit and take us out of sandbox mode, so that this email address can email any user that is using the Keycloak registration and login or forgot password system. But yeah, you'll see this is pretty sweet. So we have, if we want to reset our credentials, we got that right here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that link just to see what it looks like. Yep, so I need to change my password. I'm not going to do that right now, but just to give you a sense that you can do that, which I think is pretty sweet. And then just to walk you through a little bit of some of the code that was pushed. So the biggest things that we did in the repo here, so I added an ALB with an SSL cert and a target group. So there's a load balancer in front of all of this right now. There's a Route 53 entry for Keycloak with that ALB. So that's how that's working. It's not directly hitting an instance, it's hitting an ALB target group, which eventually I'm going to turn into an auto scale group, and maybe, well, actually probably go down into having EKS set up, but for now, yeah, it is what it is. There are certs. I put in certs for Keycloak. There are, so the EC2 instance for Keycloak, it's just a T2 medium. We don't really need a beefy server right now, so once we start actually having users come on, this is pretty easy to switch and then rebuild. We can change the instance count. We can actually roll this over into an auto scale group, but for right now, this is fine. I had been looking into Keycloak through Lambda, but it's a Java application. It takes a little bit to get started up, and Lambdas are not intended to be long-living. They really are more of a per request. I mean, they do have some life cycle depending upon concurrency and provisioned use and all that, but it's not really the use case, right? So for now, we're having hosted instances to handle Keycloak. We did add some IAM permissions related to, and if anyone's curious, like these modules on the Terraform module registry are pretty awesome. So I have one for Circle CI. That's how I'm able to actually do a push and then just have it deploy. I have one for my user. I've been playing around with setting up some super user groups and assume roles. This whole module set's pretty cool. But importantly, I have a Keycloak SES user. And I have a policy for sending raw email, which that user then gets attached to. So all necessary, but definitely took a little doing to get all that hooked up and figured out. There's also log buckets. So there's this cool module from TrustWorks where essentially it creates a bucket, an S3 bucket with all of the permissions you need for like CloudFront and Redshift or ALB logging. So that's kind of nice. It's all packaged up. And then let's see. S3, we added the SES bucket and the Keycloak ALB logs bucket. Let's see what's under. Yeah, and then I had to add Keycloak access ingress to the database, SSH access to an instance only from my IP. The AWS security role allow Keycloak instance access. That's for the ALB, which you'll see here. So it's the source security group is the Keycloak ALB, to be able to talk to the instance that is running Keycloak, which it's running on the EC2 instance on port 80, but underneath the hood it's actually being mapped to a Docker instance, which is on port 8080. But point being, this is not doing an SSL tunnel right here. If we wanted to do that and do forward secrecy, what is it? Perfect forward secrecy, I believe. Whatever the term is, but where you essentially have an unbroken chain of SSL connects. We could eventually do that. It's just a little bit more overhead, not the highest priority right now, but it is something that I've considered, and it's on the backlog, so to speak. Outbound instance, this is so the instance that's running Keycloak can do system updates, that sort of thing. And then the ALB needs to have ingress from the world on the SSL standard port. And yeah, and then outbound so that the ALB can actually serve the traffic back. So all good stuff. SES, if anybody is, TrustWorks has a few really great Terraform modules. So if you're interested, definitely check them out. They sort of package most of the heavy lifting behind the scenes of getting SES terraformed, and this was definitely a lot easier than the headache that it could have been. So yeah, that's what changed on the Terraform side. And if anyone's curious, the web side, now keep in mind this project, I'm only only getting started, and it definitely is a little ugly at the moment, but ugly's fine as long as we make it prettier as we go. So the index, what we're doing here, we have that Keycloak init with init options, so we pass that in. And that's if we're not authed, right? So that's this promise on the Keycloak module. That's how it automatically is handling that page reload, right? So if the user logs out, right, it is going to say, hey, wait a minute, you're not logged in anymore, you're not authed, so that's why it does that page reload. But if you are authed and you are logged in, it's doing this local storage for the Keycloak token and the refresh token, and it's also storing your user ID, which, if anybody's curious, this is the structure you get back from Keycloak user info when you do load user info. So if you need the TypeScript class shape, that's what you can use there. And then yeah, the only other thing I would point out is that I'm kind of a stickler for trying to get the bedrocks of things in place early on if possible. So I did get a robots.txt in there, which has a crawl delay of 10 seconds, a placeholder for a sitemap, which I'm trying to look into some React options for automatically generating this, because the site is primarily going to be dynamic with user-generated accounts and content. But by default, we disallow user agents that are not one of the big ones. And then as we get a better sense of the sitemap, we will disallow anything that we don't want the search indexers to use. So yeah, if you want to take a look at the code, as you can see, it's all pushed, it's all public. Feel free to jump in. Yeah, builds are passing. I do need to update the Circle CI to run CodeCov to get that, but yeah, it's on my list. Yeah, so yeah, and now go all the way back here. So this is an exciting one for me. It seems like a simple thing, but login, registration, user IDs, forgot password, some degree of localization, having it all terraformed. It's the small steps done right and done well that allow you to take the bigger steps later. And this is a really great foundation to build on now. So I'm excited. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Yeah, see you tomorrow.